Hi, welcome back. I wanted to do something that's perhaps a little bit different. I wanted to explain or go into the process of deciding which books to send for grading. This is after the cleaning and pressing stage. So today I've just had a batch come back to me from cleaning and pressing. Some great books here, all done by John Lacey at Comic Press. See the link in the description. But basically, the next stage is trying to decide out of this lot of books, which ones do I choose for grading, and which ones do I sell raw, or which ones do I put away for another, like a later batch. And it's this kind of decision making that I think makes the difference between a successful submission, because I don't actually believe that you should grade everything, and there's a time and place for grading certain books based on trends, based on upcoming movies, series, interest, etc. So anyway, enough of my rambling. Let's get on with the books. So the first book is a Warrior Magazine 1, and I'm going to take some of these out of the bag depending on the values and things like that. But yeah, so just to look at the kind of my estimated grade for these. So this is what I'd do: is I'd take them out. Even though I've seen pictures that John would have sent for cleaning and pressing, after cleaning and pressing, I still want to see the books myself in person, because I don't think that beats. I don't think you can fully judge a book just based on images. So looking at this in person, I would estimate this to be a kind of mid-grade book, probably around a 5, I would say 5.0. And so I'd look at it, get the grades, or my predicted grade, and then I'd go on GPA. So open up GPA. Search. Okay. Warrior 1982. Okay. So I see here a 5.0 sold in December 2021 for $350, which is probably around the same sort of time where he had the interest in Miracle Man. So $350 is a nice amount compared to what I paid for. So I guess that's the other thing to consider as well when deciding whether to send something for grading, is once you've done your research in terms of pricing, what they're worth or what they could potentially be worth, you need to consider the margin based on what you paid for them. And this is with, by the way, this is with the end goal of selling. It might be different if you're just keeping these for your personal collection. Then you wouldn't be worried so much about the values and the selling prices and stuff like that. So yes, this video is primarily aimed at how you would choose books to send for grading that you intend on selling. So yeah, $350, that would give me a nice return on what I paid for this. So for me, that that is a yes in terms of grading based on one sale. So bear that in mind, it's not flying off the shelves. Now if I go a little bit further and go onto eBay and I search for Warrior Magazine 1, I see there are two listings for the Raw. And if I go on to CGC, don't see any CGC copies. So if I go on to completed items, I also don't see any recent completed copies, apart from one on the 1st of December, which was an 8.5, which sold for nearly £600. But anything mid-grades, yeah, here we go. So 31st of December, this is probably the one that GPA collected. £300, best offer accepted, 5.0. And then if I want to take the research one step further, I go onto the listing, and I have a look at the actual book. So I zoom in on the book to compare it to my predicted 5.0. And if I'm being honest, looking at this book, I think mine compares favourably. So as a sort of comparison, that bodes well for me. So I think based on that, I'm pretty hopeful that this should get a 5, minimum of 5.0. Okay, so that's kind of an overview on that one book, but let's carry on. You might know this one, Ultimate Fallout 4. Let's have a look at the book. I know where the issues are on this book. So they're not on the front. The front is absolutely immaculate. They're on the back, on the top right corner. So if I look at that, it's got 2 small spine ticks and a little bit of a sort of corner dent. But apart from that, the copy is immaculate. So, you know, for me, this is a no-brainer. Like, based on the price that I paid for it and knowing this book inside out, that's got to go for grading, because that, in my mind, is a 9.4 all day. So it's, you know, it's a no-brainer. Next one, SpiderMan 4. First Lucifer, of course. Now, let's look at the book. Yeah, it's a nice copy, nice clean copy. Again, probably I would say a 9.4 for this one. Yeah, 9.2, 9.4. A couple of spine ticks on the back, but very small. By the way, spine ticks does not mean a modern comic is useless. You know. So let's have a look at SpiderMan 4. SpiderMan 4. I know that SpiderMan in general has gone down, but that's totally understandable because series hype has gone down. So, you know, but I can tell you the minute that trailer hits, and it's actually, if it looks good, then this is going to jump up again. Sandman for $190 average, so not a massive value, but pretty much green arrows across the board in those sort of grades. So I would say yes to go ahead with that one. Like that, I think that issue's got plenty left in terms of potential. Next one. So got Miss Marvel 1. I think it's the first solo Kamala Khan. Let's have a look. So, okay. It's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid book. So one way is to kind of look at it in the light, try and catch the light, try and see if there are any issues that way, turn the book. Yeah, again, pretty solid. Probably same sort of grade, 9.2, 9.4. And this one I'm just going to get it done without doing any of the research, because we all know Miss Marvel's coming. We all know Kamala Khan is going to be a big deal. It doesn't take a lot of specking to work that out. So for me, that's a no-brainer. You know, it's worth grading. Okay, now we go on to SpiderMan 75, pence variants. And this is a lovely copy. I know this is a lovely copy. There's just one problem with it, but in general, it's absolutely it. I mean, you can tell, you know, based on, you know, the reflection and everything else, it's an absolutely gorgeous copy. It has got let's try and get in the camera, this kind of spine issue, spine split, not spine split, spine tear, small spine tear, which is about less than half an inch. But apart from that, sharp corners, immaculate spine, great colour. That's got to be an 8. That's got to be an 8. Even with that spine tear, I mean, that's got to be around an 8, I would say. So let's do Amazing Spider-Man 75. Okay, so obviously what it's mostly showing me here is US based on the pence, and the last pence sold for $285. So that was in September, so it's not exactly, you know, flying off the shelves. Let's say it was an 8.5. A more recent one in December sold for $225. So that tells me that the value is somewhere between $225 and $285. Now, if I think about what I paid for it, plus grading costs, plus pressing cost, it's kind of it's a little bit of a question mark for me whether this is worth it. And also based on the fact that I know Raw Silver Age Spider-Man sells well. So for me, that one is a question mark, because it wasn't that cheap to buy. The pressing costs are substantial, plus the plus the grading costs, and when I add everything up, probably best, if I sit down after this video and write it out properly, I can then decide based on the margin whether that's worth it for me. So that one for me goes in the question mark pile. And if there's a question mark against it, and then I go away and I do the maths, and it works out that it's better for me not to grade it, and I just sell it raw. Okay, so the next one is also a really obvious spec. I mean, these are beyond spec now. These are just obvious books that you want to be grading in decent grades, and it's a Moonlight one, regular, and for me, let's have a look. I mean, that's come out really well. There's a little bit of discoloration on this one, the blue. I've had several copies of this, and I've noticed that the blue varies significantly. Sometimes it's kind of purple, like really obviously purple. Sometimes it's more blue, and it's just a weird issue. And then of course the famous miscut on this issue and stuff like that. It's all over the shop. Yeah, so I mean, looking at it, it's pretty obvious. It's got like 2 small ticks, but apart from that, it's a pretty easy one to grade. It's a near mint, probably again around 9.4. And that just, for me, I know I've missed the boat in terms of timescales, because let's be honest, this will probably be ready by Christmas 2024 at this rate in terms of grading. But I think it's still a great book to be grading. I think Moonlight as a character has got so much potential, because no one's ever heard of Moonlight apart from comics people. So once people start to hear of Moonlight, once Marvel start to properly get into the whole horror phase that they're going to do, I think it's just got so much potential. So I don't think just because I've missed a trailer for Moonlight doesn't mean that this book is now suddenly not worth grading. Then I've got another really obvious spec, Marvel Now 0.1. Again, it's kind of like, it's one of those that I think it's around a near mint. So again, that has to go. Then we shoot back to the Silver Age with one of my favourite comics of all time, and I need to really just stop buying multiple copies of this. But anyway, it's Fantastic Four 57. So let's have a look at this one. Whew. Yeah, it's a nice copy. I knew the corner had a little bit of a problem. See that kind of corner issue there. The spine is pretty good. I mean, having graded and seen, as I say, multiple copies of this, I'm pretty familiar with it. So I'd probably estimate this around 6.5. Should get 6.5 should do. So 6.5. Apology for the slightly runny nose. I've got a cold. And I think this comic's been going up of late. Like, people are finally starting to see the potential that it has. 6.5. So last 6.5 sold December of last year for $300. And it's pretty much, you know, going up and up and up across the boards. I mean, the real money for this book, of course, comes in the high grades from 9.2 upwards. I mean, it's crazy to think that a 9.8, the last sale was in 2015, and that was $6,573. I daren't envisage what this would be worth today. Yeah. Anyway, so for me, that's a must grade. It's not the greatest value, but it will always sell. It will always do well. It's a book on the rise. It's a book that people are starting to sort of appreciate more. So I would say that one is a yes. Next one is Submariner 13, and I think this was some spec book to do with the latest Doctor Strange movie, but it's gone a little quiet on it. So I don't know. Let's have a look. I think this is a really nice copy. Yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous copy with minimal spine issues, pretty good corners. The back is good, a little bit staining on the bottom, but nothing really to be worried about. And of course, if you're going to, spend time grading this, you look inside. You check the staples. But I've already done this sort of analysis of the books before I sent it for pressing. So this is almost a re-estimation of grades. Based on that, I would say this is an easy 8.5, easy all day. I mean, it's a absolutely stunning copy, in my opinion. So let's have a look. Submariner 13. Now, even before I look at the price, I know that a Silver Age book with a black cover at a grade of 8.5 is going to be worth grading. I don't really need to be looking at it to know that. After saying all that, it's $150 a last sale in October. So for me, this is one for the sort of maybes, for the not sure about pile, because that doesn't leave a great profit margin after everything, so it might just have to be sold raw. So put it in that pile. And then we've got SpiderMan 86. I can't remember exactly, but this is a key, and I think it's Black Widow related somehow, and it's a pence variant, and it's got a few issues on the back. So if you see that kind of dust shadow, bottom and side, couple of ticks. Now, I don't know like I've read various reports on how harsh CGC are on dust shadows. It probably depends how high grade it is and how severe the dust shadow is, because I've seen, for instance, this side dust shadow is not too bad, it's quite light. This bottom one is heavier, as you can see, like it's a lot more pronounced. So I would say this probably drops it a couple of points. And if there wasn't that dust shadow, I probably would say it's an easy, 8.5. But with it, it's probably going to go down to about 6. So if I do the pricing for that, okay, so 6 sold for $188. And of course that's a cent. So again, I think it's a question mark whether I'd send this in, considering the costs and everything else. So I think that goes on the potentially sell raw pile. Next we've got XMen 35, which I think is the first time SpiderMan meets the X-Men, or the first time SpiderMan is in X-Men or something like that. This is also a pence copy, and it's very nice. I know it's very nice. It has, again, a dust shadow on the back, which is, you can see there, it's quite severe. It's not the lightest dust shadow I've ever seen. It's a little bit, a little bit toasty, but apart from that, a few creases, nothing major. It presents really well, and so probably again an easy 8.5 without, probably an 8 actually. So probably with that it would probably go to around a 7 or 6.5, something around that. Let's be conservative and say 6.5. So and again, I would always say to be conservative when you're estimating, because if you do get a great grade back, then you'll be surprised. But if you think, oh, everything's a 9 and then it comes back as 6, then obviously you're going to be pretty disappointed. Okay, so 6.5 sold for $400 in December for a pence. I personally would put pence values at similar rates, if slightly lower. Obviously, depending on the book, like Fantastic 452 is probably worth more in a pence than a cent. So $400. What did I pay for it and the costs? Sometimes I need to work out what $400 is, or what dollars is in pounds, to make it, actually. Yeah, so it's about £300. So for me, I think that's probably still worth it, and it'll be a nice book to get graded. That's the other thing to add on to all of this considerations, is how nice a book is it? Like, how appealing is the book? Like, I know that this isn't the greatest copy in the world, but it's SpiderMan, it's the XMen. It's two very hot properties. As someone selling comics, you need to think, how appealing is that to your target or to your audience? And for me, that graded would be very appealing. It would still sell raw, of course it would, and it would sell well raw. But graded, it would add something to your store. It would make your store stand out. So again, how appealing is a comic as well? So for me, that goes in the yes pile. And then I've got Moonlight 30, which I don't think it will have great value, but it's one I kind of like because of the Werewolf by Night kind of Marvel horror. And I know this is an amazing copy. So yeah. It's an easy 9.496. Depends what mood the grader's in. Could be more. Let's say a 9. I would say. I mean, it's a lovely copy. Let's do a conservative 9.6. See how conservative that is. Moonlight 30 9.6. Okay, so a Moonlight 30 and a 9.6 sold for 114, average 132, 90-day average. So yes, not one with a incredible value, but because of the show and because as I mentioned earlier with Moonlight being such a potentially great character going forward, I would still get this graded, even though the sell value is not incredible. This one will be interesting. So you might know this one, Hawkman, issue 4, for Satana. Now, this I was pretty annoyed about when I bought it. I bought it as part of a lot, and kind of like almost like a blind lot. And sometimes you think, well, get lucky, and sometimes you don't. And it's got a massive sort of inch-long tear that goes through the whole book. Well, maybe closer to 2 inches. But John has done a spectacular job cleaning and pressing this, and it presents really well for a low grade book. And it's such a nice key. It's one of the sort of DC keys that still consistently does well. Corner problems, some writing on the cover, but the cover really presents well, and I think this is something else to think about when you're grading books. How well is that going to present in a slab? It's a low grade copy. It's got it's got a massive tear, but put it in a slab, that's going to present beautifully. Even as a 2.0 or whatever it is that it's going to be, and I probably think it will be maybe a 2.5. I would say probably around that 2. Maybe if I find them in a good mood, I might get a 3. So let's have a look at the value. But for me, that's just based on it being a big DC key. looking good in a slab. And you know, I would say yes, but let's just check the value on, say, a 2.5. A 2.5 sold in March of last year for 440. A 3.0 sold in December for 700. 3.5 though sold in January for 576. It's around a $400 to $600 book. Easily a $400 to $600 book graded. So for me, that's a yes. And then another one of these spec, not really spec, obvious kind of books to be getting. And yeah, I already know that it's a kind of near mint copy. Yes, it goes in the yes pile. And the next one you might be familiar with as well, SpiderMan 50. Now, I don't want to be taking this out too much out of the bag, but let's do it anyway. This is an interesting one. So it presents well. Like, the cover is pretty unmarked. The spine has definitely had, it's been a red book. It's got tape pull, corner bends, Marvel chipping. It's got quite a few issues. The back is pretty good, pretty nice. So again, great job there from John. It's a nice book, and it's a really hot book, and it's got a date stamp inside. So, prediction time. I would say this is probably around a 4. If I'm lucky, a 4.5. Let's have a look. Amazing Spider-Man 50. Okay, so say, and it's a pence, by the way. So a 4 last sold for 1,300. I mean, this book is absolutely flying. So it's gone from the average in 2020 for a 4.0 was $370. So it's gone from $370 to $1,300. Insane, absolutely insane. So yes, that's an obvious pick for grading. It has to be. Another obvious one, Spider-Man 129. Don't really want to be getting this out of the bag, but I'm going to do it anyway because I wanted to double check something in terms of grading. So it's a nice copy. It's a nice clean copy. The spine is good. The corners are nice. It might be trimmed. I don't know. It's probably not. It's probably just miswrapped. Let's have a look. Is it? Yeah, I think it's miswrapped. It's kind of a little bit too high on top and a bit too low on bottom. Let's have a look. Yeah. So my main concern was about the back and this kind of staining area there in the corner. But for me, for me that still works as a 7. That still works as a 7, even with that weird kind of slightly weird looking top right. What's that look like on the inside? Yeah. For me, that should get a 7. That should really get a 7. Maybe a 7.5 if I'm lucky. And SpiderMan 129. What's that been going for recently? As a 7.5. So as a 7 last sale 21.86, average 23.99. Again, that's doubled from 2020 in terms of value. 7.5, 27.60, 25, around. So it's around 2.3 to 2.5 kind of dollars. So let's say $2,400 pounds, about 1,800 pounds. So for me, that's that's a no-brainer, and also it will look great, on the store. So yes, that's one for grading. Another Moonlight one. This time a new stand, and I already kind of know that it's a near mint, very fine near mint. So yes, again for spec purposes. And the final one, a lot, a Nix 3. Now, this is it's a nice copy. If it didn't have this one issue that I'm going to show you in a minute, I would say this is a easy candidate for grading. But it's got this kind of weird sort of mark there, as you can see in the light, and this nothing could be done about this in the press. Couldn't press it out. It's still there. It's kind of like a stamp, like some sort of hot object or liquid caused it. And yeah, it's not a biggie, but you can see it like reflected in the light, and it is better than it was. Now, for me, if I had to grade it, I'd probably go around an 8.5 based on that. And this is going to be an interesting one because I've already decided what I'm going to do with this one. So, and I'll explain it. I'll explain why. So a Nix 3. Is it Nix or NYX? Don't know. In an 8, in an 8 it's a 500. In an 8.5 it's sold in December for $350, which is a ludicrous price. I don't know who got that bargain. But anyway, so it's not worth £1 million. Yeah, it's not. It's one of those keys that you think, oh, it's really important. X-23, Laura Kinney, Wolverine's daughter. It's got to be worth a ton of money. It's not. I've sold this book before, and it's surprisingly not worth as much as you think it would be worth. So I would say it's worth somewhere around well, it's probably worth around 500, which was what it last sold for in May of last year, although you don't want to be quoting May as a source of last year. Let's say a 9.0 sold in January for $600. So it's going to be around $500 to $600. Now, let's say $550, $500, $550, about £400. It's an okay return on what I paid for it. It's not, when I add in the costs, it's not an amazing return. And the other thing to consider in all this is considering the selling costs. If you're using eBay to sell, or any other platform to sell, or if you're taking payments using PayPal, you're going to be paying fees. So factor that in to, when you do the numbers for this. But for me, that's a kind of borderline one. It'll go in the query pile, but it won't go in the query pile, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to run an auction. Because I think that some hot books do really well in an auction, and if you watch books closely, you'll see some trends, and Nyx 3 is one of those books that flies in an auction, and if it gets anywhere near £400, which it might, then I'll be happy. It might not do, it might crash at 300 or less. You just never know when you put something on for auction. But if it does get to over 300 and close to 400, then that's exactly what I would have got if I'd waited half a lifetime for it to be graded, then graded it, then sold it, all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's worth auctioning off. So that's the last of my last batch back from cleaning and pressing. I hope that's useful. I just wanted to, as I said, go into a little bit more detail about the kind of thought process that goes into deciding, how you go from something has been cleaned and pressed to then getting it graded. Thanks for watching.